First of all, I have my whole resupply listed in the description of this video, so you can check that out. And also, this video is probably gonna be pretty long, and I'm gonna put like a table of contents with timestamps also in the description, so make sure you look at that right now so you can skip around the video and watch exactly what you want to watch. First of all, when you're planning your resupply, I recommend you go to the PNTA website. It's www.pnt.org. It's a pretty sweet website. It's the best trail website I've ever seen. And they have this whole section pretty much dedicated to resupplying. Like the eastbound miles, westbound miles, all the towns, you know, whether it's on the trail or you got to hitch in, it's pretty sweet. This is where I actually planned my first rough draft of my resupply. Only thing you gotta note here is that the miles that they put on here is not gonna be the miles that are gonna be on Guthook, which is probably gonna be the app that you're using. The miles that I put in my resupply plan in the description of the video are based off the Guthook miles, not the miles that you see here. But for most of them, they're gonna be the same, but for some of them, like I think in Republic, it's a little off. Also, I used a guidebook that I got on Amazon. There's going to be a link to it in the description. It's like 11 bucks, and I kept it with me the entire time throughout the trail. And for all the ultralight people out there, it weighs like 4 ounces, so it's not heavy. And as I passed by the towns, I just ripped out the pages and threw them away, so it got lighter as I went on. The Trail Town guide was pretty sweet. It's kind of like the Yogi's guidebook if you use that for the CDT or PCT, but without the insane price tag. It has like a map of each town and like, you know, just descriptions of all the services that they have and don't have. So it's really useful, and I recommend you buy it and carry it with you, or at least, you know, scan it and keep the files on your phone or something. All right, so now I'm gonna go through my resupply plan town by town. The first town is East Glacier. If you're going westbound like I did, this is gonna be the first time you get to in Glacier National Park. And I did not send a box there, but I definitely should have. The CDT also starts there, and I sent a box there when I did the CDT, but for some reason I didn't when I did the PNT, and I definitely regret doing that. You can send it to the Brownies Hostel, pick it up when you get there. That's what I recommend. All right, so my first resupply, and most people are gonna have to go through this town. It's gonna be at Polebridge. It was mile 55, and Polebridge really doesn't have that much. You're not gonna have cell service there. It's pretty much just one dirt road. They have like a mercantile there, but pretty limited resupply. I sent a box to the hostel there, which you're probably gonna be staying at if you stay there, because it's pretty much the only option. I sent about 3 days worth of food there to get to Eureka. I definitely recommend sending a box there, because you're really not going to be able to get a real resupply in town. The next town I went to was Eureka. It's like mile 135-ish, and this is a legit town, and they pretty much have all the services you could want. So they have a gas station, C-stores, grocery stores, and I did not send a box there. I just resupplied in town. The next resupply was Yaak, and that was at mile 191. You have to hitch in there, but you also have the option of doing a road walk in and out of town. I hitched in there, and Yaak is kind of like Polebridge. It's pretty much just one street with a few stores and restaurants, and it's a paved road, it's not a dirt road. I also sent a box here, and they actually do have a tiny C-store, general store, and honestly you probably could do a resupply there, because your next resupply stop is going to be in Bonners Ferry or Feast Creek. The miles to get there, I believe, let's see, is about 40 miles. So you should be able to resupply at that tiny store for just 40 miles. It wouldn't be a big deal. But I sent a box there, and I think my box had about 2 days worth of food. All right, that pretty much covers Montana, and Idaho just pretty much has one resupply spot. And as I mentioned, that's going to be Feast Creek, which is pretty much on trail. I think it's like 0.3 off trail, and that's also the place where you can get a ride into Bonners Ferry. A lot of PNT hikers like to send a box to the Feast Creek Resort because it's pretty easy. You can just pick it up and get going. That's what I did. I think my box had, let's see, 4.5 days of food. That's a pretty decent amount of food for me, because the next stretch was a little over 100 miles away. Middle of that 100 miles, that's when you do the Lion's Head Ridge or Bushwhack. Either of those two routes is going to be really slow moving, so the day that you do that section, it's probably gonna be a pretty small day, so I had a little extra food in there for that. Now, I picked up my box at Fiest Creek, but I ended up going into town anyways because towns are pretty much a vortex for me. It's hard for me to avoid, and it ended up being a good decision because, like I said, the next section is kind of rough, and I don't know how to pronounce it. I don't know if it's Fiest Creek, Fiest Creek. I'm just gonna call it Fiest Creek. So that's Idaho, and after that, you're going into Washington. Your first resupply stop in Washington is going to be Metaline Falls, and this actually ended up being one of my favorite trail towns because pretty much it's small, it's one street like most trail towns on this trail, and pretty much everything that hiker could want is on that one street. They had a place for you to stay, you know, across the street from that was the post office, and next door where you stayed was a cafe. Like 100 feet down the road there was a little market. And then I think there was also like a tavern where you could eat, but I didn't go there. But yeah, Metaline Falls, you can easily do a resupply there. I didn't send a box. I just bought food at the market and I left. Your next stop after that is also going to be a on-trail trail town. It's going to be Northport. And Northport is a legit town. There's plenty of gas stations, convenience stores. There's a grocery store, so I just resupplied when I got there. No real need to send a box there. I don't recommend that. Personally, I don't like to send too many boxes. It's just kind of a hassle to try and, you know, just pick up a box if you have to send it to a post office. And not to mention, you still got to pay for the postage, which a lot of people don't really take into account when they think they're saving money on sending boxes. But Northport is pretty easy resupply. I think it's less than 100 miles to the next town, which is Republic, and this is where you kind of have some options. Alright, so unlike the last three towns, Republic is a town that you have to hitch into. It's a sweet trail town. It's like the other ones, it's just one street, but this one street is pretty much loaded with restaurants, lodging, and, you know, grocery stores. So you can easily resupply in town in Republic. That's what I did, no box. In Republic, you have 3 options to enter this town. Pretty much every thru hiker on the PNT is gonna go into this town at least once. As you can see, the trail kind of goes down around it, eastbound and westbound in like a U shape. And Republic is just right smack dab in the center. And you got 3 options to hitch in this town, like the western side of the U, the eastern side of the U, and then, you know, the south. Like I said, they all require hitches. As far as which one's easiest to hardest, I think they're all equal. You might get varying opinions on that. I went in there 2 times on the east and west side. When I went on the east side, we called the Trail Angel and Mike and Artie, shout out to them. They came out and picked us up, so that was pretty easy. We stayed in Republic, went out the next day, and we pretty much hiked that section from where we hitched in to the western spot where you hitch in, which I believe it's about 50 miles. So we spent one night, did a little bit of night hiking. Following day, we got picked up by the same Trail Angels on the western side. They brought us back and we stayed at their house. So that's Republic. You got 3 chances to go into this town, and you pretty much have to go in this town at least once, unless you want to do a pretty long carry, which you probably don't, because that would pretty much be like almost 200-mile carry from Northport to Oroville, which is the next town. Alright, so Oroville is a town that is on trail, so you're gonna walk through it, and Oroville is gonna be your last town before the Poseidon Wilderness. The stretch from Oroville to Ross Lake is gonna be probably the longest stretch of the PNT for you. It was for me. Oroville to Ross Lake is about 165-ish miles, and so that's a pretty long carry. Even with that, I didn't send a box there. Oroville has a big grocery store there. They actually, I think it's a Safeway, and they also have a bunch of markets and convenience stores, so real easy resupply in town. There's only one motel in town, and they do accept hiker boxes there. They're real hiker friendly, so if you do want to send a box there, you can just send it to them because you're probably gonna be staying with them anyways, and they'll hold it for you. Alright, so Ross Lake, the next resupply stop, is a resort. It's pretty much right on the water. You're gonna be on docks, and this place pretty much has no real resupply. In their office, they have like snacks and stuff like Snickers bars. Depending on where you're going, you might be able to get away with that. I think the town of Glacier is 50 miles after Ross Lake. So you might be able to resupply at Ross Lake just enough to get you 50 miles to Glacier. This is a spot where I would definitely highly recommend sending a resupply box, and this was actually my last box of the trail. You can only send one box to Ross Lake. They do charge money for it. You're not gonna be able to do too much there in terms of town chores. I washed my socks in the lake, and I pretty much just hung out there. They had a vending machine, drank some soda, just chilled out there for a few hours, picked up my box, threw some trash away, headed off after that. Alright, editing the video right now, and I forgot to mention something pretty important about Ross Lake, and that's that you need to send your box at least 3 weeks before you think you're gonna get there. The box actually doesn't go to the resort. They have to go and pick it up and bring it back. That's part of the reason, or probably the reason, why they charge money for it. If you think you're gonna get there on August 1st, I recommend sending it, July 1st, just to give yourself some cushion, and you don't want to get there and realize that your box is not there, because like I said, they don't have any real resupply there. You'd have to find a way into town from Ross Lake, which would be a big pain in the butt. So if you got to send a box there, which you probably are, make sure you send it out very early. Alright, so the remaining resupply towns got a little different for me, and that starts with Sedro-Woolley / Concrete. Most people will probably resupply in Concrete after Ross Lake, and that was actually our plan. Going back to Gut Hook here, so I came out of the trail down here, and instead of doing this giant walk around Baker Lake, which part of it is a road walk, once I got to this point, I just walked all the way down this road and connected it down here. That just saved me a bunch of miles. I'm not gonna do a longer road walk when I can do a shorter one. And right at this point right here, which is at mile 830, that's where me and my buddies hitched into Concrete. It was supposed to be a hard hitch from what we heard, but it was really easy. There's a lot of traffic on that road, especially during the summer. A lot of people like to go camping around Baker Lake, so it should be pretty easy to get a hitch, but I also wouldn't be surprised if it took a little longer. You do have the option of walking into Concrete on this Cascade Rails to Trails alternate. Personally, I don't recommend doing that, and that's just kind of a waste of time where you can just hitch in and out. I also remember on the maps it said part of that trail was kind of like unmaintained and a little exposed, so just keep that in mind. Alright, so we got to Concrete, and all the motels in town were pretty much all booked up. So the people that gave us a lift into town, they offered to drive us to Sedro-Woolley, which is actually where the PNTA headquarters is at. So that's where we went. Personally, I wouldn't recommend doing that. We only did it because we already had the ride, lined up. Your best bet for an easy hitch back out the trail is just to stay in Concrete. Concrete seemed like a nice town. They had a market there. They had plenty of lodging options for you to stay at. They just happened to be booked when we got there. My plan was to resupply in town there, but I didn't actually go to any of those stores, so I can't say how well stocked it is. I imagine it's pretty well stocked because, like I said, it's a legit town. We went to Sedro-Woolley, which again is a legit town. They have a grocery store there, Rite Aid, Marcus, C-stores, and had no problem resupplying there. Okay, so after Sedro-Woolley / Concrete, you're gonna get to the part of the trail, if you're going westbound, where you pretty much don't really need to carry food. What I mean by this is that this is the part of the trail where you're gonna be legitimately walking through at least 1 or 2 towns almost every single day, depending on what your pace is, because it's pretty much all road walking. Most of it is gonna be paved. Yeah, it sucks, but it's pretty easy to put in miles, and like I said, you're gonna be going through a lot of towns. So the first one is gonna be Alger, however you pronounce it. I did a very small resupply there because I already had a decent amount of food left over. I think I left Alger's with about 2 days of food, and that was just to get me to Anacortes, which was gonna be my next resupply stop. I really ended up not even going into my food bag for like the next 200 miles or so. Because starting from Alger, that's really when the road walk is going to start. You're going to be going through plenty of places that have convenience stores and restaurants. I ended up just going into a restaurant with my trail buddies at each of these towns and just eating a pretty big meal and then hiking out. So I really had no need for any food in my bag. If you wanted to save money, you could just stick with your trail food and avoid the restaurants, but I'd rather stick with like a burger and fries than a Snickers bar. So because of all these towns, I pretty much didn't have to resupply for quite some time until Quilcene, and this is where things also kind of got a little bit weird. You're probably not going to go to Quilcene because it's not an actual PNT trail town. Most people are going to go to Port Townsend, which I think is at exactly mile 1000, and you'll probably resupply there and then go into the Olympics. When I made my Olympic permit, I decided to road walk south down to Quilcene and then enter the Olympics from there. Doing some research, it seemed like there was not really another good option to get into the Olympics. If I followed the official route or the gut hook red route, it was supposed to be a real horrible bushwhack. Basically, I heard nothing but bad things about it. PNTA has since created a new route that kind of avoids the bushwhack, but I don't think Gut Hook has updated that yet. So yeah, that's why I went down to Quilcene. It was pretty easy road walk. I think it was only like an extra 8 or 10 miles. And then from Quilcene, I resupplied there. They had a market, they had convenience stores, so it was pretty easy. And then from there I went into the Olympics. Okay, so my final resupply stop was Port Angeles. And this is pretty much at the halfway point when you're in the Olympic National Park. I recommend you try hitching in there at the Hurricane Visitor Center, because more likely than not, it's gonna be really crowded there. I think it took us about all of not even 30 seconds to get a hitch from that visitor center to Port Angeles. The original plan was to hitch in on, I think it's called Hurricane Road or something like that, and that road has since been closed. I think it got washed out a couple years ago or something, so they closed the road. And if you want to get a hitch into Port Angeles from there, you have to take a road walk a couple miles to where you can actually thumb it and get a hitch. Now going back to Gut Hook here, the Hurricane Visitor Center is right there. It is on the blue route, not the red route. And like I said, the original plan was to hitch in to Port Angeles from right here, which, like I said, will require a road walk down to Route 101 to try and actually get a decent hitch. You'll probably save some time just hitching from the Hurricane Ridge Visitor Center. So that was pretty much my entire resupply on the PNT. And my original plan was to go in the Forks, and I'll talk about that real quick. That's at mile 1156.6, and the hitch in the Forks is only like 5 miles, so it should be pretty easy. Forks is a full service town, so you won't have any issue resupplying there. And oh yeah, Port Angeles is also a full resupply town. I mean, plenty of lodging options and all that. I think I resupplied at the Safeway, so really no need to send a box there. So if you want to keep your bag light, you could go in the Forks, but from Port Angeles to the end is only like a 100-mile carry. If you're going westbound, that's probably going to be pretty easy for you. You should be in good shape by then. So there's really no need to go in the Forks. You might as well just save your time and money. One more town that I'll talk about is La Push, and this is a town that you have to go through because the trail goes through it. It's a pretty small town. They don't have like a real grocery store there, but they do have probably the best general store that I've ever seen in my life on any trail. You could easily do a resupply at this general store, assuming you're not a picky eater and assuming you don't have any dietary restrictions. Not to mention, from La Push to the end is like, I think 5 miles. You don't really need any food at all. I didn't resupply there. I just picked out at the store and just kept on going. All right, so what I do differently and what I would recommend. As I mentioned, I do recommend sending a box to East Glacier just so you don't have to worry about buying food when you get there. You can just go to the ranger station, get a permit, and try to just start the trail. Eureka was good. Yaak, yeah, probably still send a box there. Now from Fiest Creek, whatever, I sent a box there, but if I hike the trail again, I probably wouldn't. I would just go into Bonner's Ferry again. Like I mentioned, the section from Bonner's to Metaline is a pretty tough section, so you might want to get some, you know, R&R, rest and recovery, before you start that section. Bonner's Ferry is a full service town. You won't have any issue buying food there for a resupply. I think they have a few grocery stores. Metaline Falls was good, Northport was good. Alright, so Republic, like I mentioned, you got 3 opportunities to go into this town. If I hike the trail again, I'd probably just go into it once. This year, I went into Republic on the east and west hitches. So if I did the trail again, I guess I'll just split the difference and go in on the south hitch just to save some time and money, you know, going there once instead of twice. Oroville was an easy resupply. Definitely send a box to Ross Lake. Like I said, their resupply there is extremely minimal. Maybe if I did the trail again, I would go into Glacier, which like I mentioned was only 50 miles after Ross Lake. But I'd probably still send a box there just for, you know, a day and a half of food. I will go into Glacier because then I wouldn't have to worry about hitching into Concrete or Sedro-Woolley. All those hitches into those 3 places I've heard can be tough, so I guess you kind of just have to pick your poison. Now from Alger all the way to Port Townsend, I would definitely do this differently. And if I did the trail again, I'm not even kidding you, I'd probably only carry like 3 Snickers bars because I would just be eating in town, you know, multiple times a day. So might as well just keep your pack light. No need for, you know, any real resupply through that section because it's just all flat, easy road walking. Just stay light and treat yourself when you're in town because the road walks suck. Now for Quilcene, like I mentioned, that's not an actual PNT town. If I did the trail again, I probably wouldn't go there. I'd probably just resupply in Port Townsend, enter the Olympic National Park through that new route. Yeah, that would pretty much just save me, you know, 8 or 10 miles of extra road walking. But for this year, that was a really good decision. I got to avoid that bushwhack and it was a pretty easy way into the Olympic National Park. I think that's pretty much it. Maybe I wouldn't go to Port Angeles. Maybe I might just push all the way to Forks. I don't know. I guess that's just your decision. Like I said, if you're going westbound by that point, you should be in pretty good shape. So you should be able to do a longer carry. So Port Townsend to Forks would be like a 150 mile carry, which is kind of long, but I don't know, at that point it should be doable. So that's pretty much it for this video. Just wanted to make a resupply video. I know a lot of people are always worried about resupplies when it comes to hiking these trails. There's not that many resources when it comes to the PNT, so I figured I'd just make this video to help people out. If you have any other questions, just leave a comment down below. If you want me to go in depth into anything else, don't ask me about any town that I didn't talk about in this video because I didn't talk about it because I didn't go there, so I can't give you any information about it. Yeah, that's it. Just shoot me a message if you got any questions and I should answer it pretty quickly.